Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Emily Bittner, the Montessori director, and I know all of you, so that's redundant. But welcome to our last teacher-led parent education series of the year. Today's session we'll be learning about, well, the title, When's the Best Time for My Child to Learn X, Y, and Z? The sensitive periods. So the sensitive periods, you're going to learn a lot more from Maggie and Michelle. I'll save those details, but I wanted to frame the talk a bit and connect it to the title of why we're talking about when the best time to learn things is. Parents often ask this question, you know, when should my child know this? How can I help with that at home? And today you'll learn about how children from birth to 6 are primed and yearning to develop in 4 particular areas. Well, actually more, but we're going to talk about 4 today. That's order, language, movement, and the refinement of senses. So an optimal development in these areas is really what sets the stage for all of the learning, both formal and informal, that they'll be doing throughout their lives. And spoiler alert, we are really good at that optimal development here at Greentown and all Montessori. So I will let Michelle and Maggie take it from here.
Hi, I'm Michelle Nowacky. I'm a toddler teacher and a toddler coordinator.
I'm Maggie. I'm one of the leads in the primary all day classroom and also a coordinator. So we thought, as all good Montessorians should do, that we would start with a quote because we all love our Montessori quotes. So one of nature's most resplendent miracles is indeed the power of the newly born, with no experience at all to find their way about and protect themselves in the outer world, guided by partial and transitory instincts which show themselves as sensitive periods. So obviously has our keyword in it, so that's why one of the reasons, but also I think it helps to situate us in this space of wonder and awe at the power of development and the amazing changes that your children are going through at this time. So we wanted to kind of set the scene with that kind of sense of wonder. Oh.
So that was a beautiful quote by Mary Montessori, but what actually does it mean for the sensitive periods? The sensitive periods are a window of time where your children are really capable of and responsive to learning new skills. So from the ages 0 to 6, they are primed and ready to learn order, language, and movement. And it's really important that we provide those opportunities and then the space and time for them to refine those skills.
So we're going to start with 2 videos, toddler first.
You're able to listen and hear her kind of narrate what she's doing, that language she's doing. Her sense of order of scrubbing first and then picking up that sponge. All of the movement involved, holding herself up, moving, gross motor skills, her arm around, bending down.
See the bubbles. See the bubbles.
Wiping her hands, sense of order. What do you do when your hands get messy?
Look at the bubbles here. The bubbles. Oh, bubbles. Oh, bubbles. See up.
Rich language. And providing the time and space in the classroom is allowing her to work without interrupting her. Go get a towel to wipe your hands off, go to the bathroom, use soap and water. No, we just let her freely explore this work.
And in this video you can really hear what she's doing is there's not a lot of talking going on from the other children, which is something that, just take note of how quiet it is in there. Compare. Flourish.
How satisfying too, to see the bubbles are pink. There was red paint on the table, so to be able to see that come out.
Here.
Sense of order. Here's down here. So that was toddler. And now let's compare that to, okay, so down is next. Right, this is primary. So she's exchanging 10 units for a 10 bar right now in this map.
And Dad
You can see like the sense of order. Close this side, open this side. Yeah, and you can hear how different it sounds. It's just constant talking, right? They're always talking to each other. Yeah, that movement is walking with the tray, getting up with the tray, sitting down, nothing falls off. So that's, she's had a lot of practice, obviously, at this point, which is kind of the difference between the toddler and primary. And she wasn't speaking, but you could hear how much language there was going on just around her. So that brings us to our first, which is order, this concept of order. And this one's like, when we were discussing it, probably like the most abstract of all of them in a way. But first we want to define our terms. Prepared environment refers to mostly like a Montessori classroom, but also any space that is designed according to Montessori pedagogy or principles. So this is a shelf, and I'm just going to quickly go through so that you know what you're looking at, but this is food work. So one of the ways that we support your child's sense of order is by how we order things on the shelf and even on the tray. So the first work here, this is all food work, so this is like just tonguing pieces of food from here to here. So that's super simple, right? And then cutting an apple, pretty simple. And then we get down here, and this is peeling and then slicing a banana. And then this one, the most complex, is spreading. So they're spreading right now on matzo crackers. So that's tricky because those are crumbly and they have to use a certain amount of pressure to get the jam across, but not so much that they crack the cracker in half, which they do, and then they eat it anyway. So this is to illustrate the idea that we go from simple to complex, left to right, top to bottom, because in our culture, that's how we read. I think another thing to note is that, for instance, the trays are color coded so they know what goes with what, right? So all the red things are with the apple, the wood is with banana. All of our tongs for food work are gold because we have tongs in the classroom that are not for food. So we make sure all of our tongs are distinct because we don't want them to start, mixing tongs. And our trays for food work are distinct. None of the other trays look like this. So in some Montessori classrooms, the trays might be color coded to the food work, but in ours it's color coded in the sense that like this is for food work. So that supports their sense of order. It helps them return things. It helps them understand, oh, this tray belongs to this work. These objects belong to this work. And that's one way that we support that sense of order.
And that's in toddler and primary, you know.
Yeah, similar but different in the two environments, yeah.
So routines are exceptionally important, and that's because consistent routines provide children a feeling of safety, of comfortability, and confidence in their day, but also in making choices and decisions. When they know what to expect, children feel a sense of control in their lives. And so at school, each environment has their own daily routine, and within that daily routine, there are smaller routines and systematic approaches to different things. For example, in my classroom, when it's time to go to circle, we'll give a 2-minute warning, and then we'll go and turn out the lights and ring the chimes. And it's kind of Pavlovian in a way, because as soon as that happens, the children start cleaning up, and then they come and join us at circle. There are cleanup routines. After lunch, the children will bust their dishes. They'll take one plate, they'll bring it to the trash can, they'll empty their food, and then the plate goes into a basin in the sink. And it's the same thing, they go back and they get their glasses, they go back and they get their utensils, and cleaning up their spaces. When routines are broken, or surprises happen, or something outside of their sense of order occurs, it can feel erratic, like a loss of control. So, for example, we see this a lot. Maybe a child's going to the bathroom, and they've done almost all of the toileting routine. They've taken off their diaper, used the toilet, they're getting ready to go flush the toilet, and another friend comes over, and they flush it instead. That can completely destroy a child because their sense of order has been broken. It's the same thing around meal times. If you're giving oatmeal or providing oatmeal at lunch, and we have sliced apples, and we put the apples in the oatmeal rather than next to the bowl, it can cause a complete meltdown. One year, I had a child in my classroom who took a bite of a cracker, and they were upset that the shape had changed. So, routines are important.
And this, just to underscore that point, and I'm sure this is very relatable to a lot of parents, the blue cup, this it is felt as a wound in the depths of the soul. And it can be hard to relate to as adults because we have developed more flexibility, right, but there are sometimes maybe you can reflect on things for yourself that like when your sense of order is interrupted, that you can also get dysregulated but for them it's so much more acute, that sense of order and this sensitive period for order, which is a wonderful thing, but also can lead to some challenges at home, which brings us to what does it look like at home? How do you, we wanted to create opportunities for you to share like either how you see your child's sense of order or like what routines or habits or setup of your environment that you have found, oh, this works really well.
2 minutes.
That's 4 minutes.
This is for our sense of order, because otherwise we won't.
Well, I can start. It does a lot of ring true in the sense that we certainly don't achieve it the way it's done at school, because I think when we have got these shelves and these playthings in the room, but we don't curate it as much. And it's more of a question, I guess. We thought we were trying to emulate the experience, but we realized as things collected, and he's made his own little order, it's become very disordered. It's got way too much. And he I want to say he thrives in that, but it's chaos for us, because we notice that it's just not, it doesn't translate from work, school, to home. It's a way, it's two different worlds from the and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's definitely two different worlds. We notice that because we try and get order at home in certain things that are obviously like school-like. People are like, no, I want it just this way. So we create an order which we don't understand, but it's his order, and we try and go with the flow a little bit, but it's not always working.
I wanted to add on to that. I've got the exact same experience. And at first I used to try to, organize Legos. I didn't want to talk about Legos. It's traumatizing. I used to try to organize Legos in some kind of, color coding, try to organize them by shape, try to organize them by set. We've gone through a lot of different organization models for Legos. But eventually now what I have, which is less stressful for me, is a big tub.
Heading that way.
It's just a big tub, just when you are done, as long as they are back in the tub. And that's manageable. That's manageable for him in terms of having that sense of order, that there's the beginning of the Lego play, and then the end of the Lego play is to put them back in that big tub. So, yeah.
We also had a recommendation from a staff member, said that when their child was young, they had just like a big mat that you could they play on the mat and then you just kind of tie it up into a thing and that becomes its own. So, just a plug, I don't know. So there's, but I think that it is nice to have the end of the cycle of cleaning up as well.
Right.
That is a part of their sense of order.
That sense of order.
And you said the word manageable, and I think that needs to be true for everyone, as long as it's manageable for your family.
Right.
Your family.
I just wanted to, I guess, from what you were saying and what I just saw is that I've noticed that with my son, the organization has to be visual. So if I put things away in a cupboard that's covered, that kind of brings some sort of, I don't want to say anxiety, but he just doesn't feel like, he feels like it's gone, as if it's not coming back, or he's not going to be able to really interact with it in the way that we fully interact with it. But if it's on his shelf, if it's on the desk, if it's in a clear tub, and he can see it, I've had better success with that kind of organizing rather than putting things away completely.
That makes sense to me. I mean, it's very similar, our environment, the things are out on the shelf, on a tray, they're in a distinct, they have a distinct tray, or a basket, so that's where it belongs, they know to put it back on there, but it is still visually available to them. They can look at what they have on the shelf and say, oh, that's what I want to do, as opposed to having to, open something up or pull a bin out, because they know, like, oh, I can see this, the Legos are here.
And we're very intentional about which basket or which tray we're using, because if we put out a huge basket and they cannot see the contents of it, they're not going to choose that as a work. So to be able to see what's in it is important for them. So the visual piece is really important.
Yeah. All right.
May I add one?
Yeah.
I was just thinking, like a part of the drive for order and the need for order, what it gives a child, like if you think of it as when things are orderly, it's more relaxing for you. Like they're not competing. If it's not in order, then you're also thinking about all these things. But in order, I mean, I'm using that. But it frees you up to not have to think about all these other things and make all these decisions and categorize, wait, this goes here, and what if this, and what if that. So it really just frees the child up and their senses up to do other things.
Yeah, we think
So it's like removing obstacles
Yeah.
so that you can learn and develop.
The external order as a precursor to the internal order. So whether it's routines are also a form of external order, as well as the physical space, but the temporal and physical order as a means to develop that sense of internal order how to regulate your emotions is really important at this age. I think always, maybe.
Always.
I know for myself at least, like if I feel, I might want to say that I don't care if my house is messy, but I do care. It does affect me, like emotionally, it does. Or conversely, like you can see when you're not in a good mood, when you're not maybe taking care of your emotions. Maybe your house reflects, or your space, or your schedule reflects that same like disorder.
So adults are always talking about the laundry pile.
Yeah.
See that and feeling that. So now we move on to language. Language is how we communicate with people, whether it's verbally or non-verbally. It's a way to, let people know what we need or what we want. It's a way to express our emotions. It's a way to understand others, and it's a way to really build relationships with each other. And in our classrooms, in our environments, we all have an area for language. It's a curricular area, but we're also very intentional about how we approach children, the words we're using, how we're speaking, what do our facial expressions reflect.
Yeah. So we call this, the language-rich environment. So these are all, just snapshots of, it's hard a little bit to capture, right, language in a photograph, but, in this photo, Miss Amanda's working with 2 children with the movable alphabet, which, the goal, the ideal is that someone, somewhere in your environment should be working with the movable alphabet at least once a day, if not more. And then in this photo, Miss J and a child are discussing what's outside the window, talking about what they noticed, talking about what they see. And then this child all the way over there is working with sandpaper letters, and she's going back to the shelf and taking more. And we have story tapes so that they can independently listen to stories or, songs. Then this child was inspired by this kindergartner this kindergartner was supposed to be reading to him. But, and then in this picture, they're at the library looking at books independently. And so, this is in conjunction with all the talking that you heard in the video too, of speaking with one another, speaking to teachers. I think one thing that's really important that we, really try to keep in mind is how the value of active listening, right? Getting down on the child's level, making eye contact, really listening to what they're saying, because it gives them that sense of like, what I say is important, what I'm saying is important to people around me. I am a storyteller and I have something worth saying, right? And so that translates to when they sit down with the movable alphabet. Because if they feel like nobody cares what I have to say, or I'm not what I have to say, or my stories aren't important, we might even say, like when a child tells you, really it's just a sentence, right? Like, I went to the ice cream store yesterday. Like, what a great story. Like it is a story. It's a short story, but it's a story. So to kind of give them that sense of themselves as a storyteller, so that they feel like, oh, I have a story. I don't have to write from a book or ask you what to write. I have all these stories in my head. And so it starts from the moment, they join us, even if they're not yet working with the movable alphabet, that like, what a great story. Thanks for sharing.
Some children come in at a young age and they'll say airplane, and that's their way of initiating a conversation. And then we might back it up with a question like, "Oh, were you on an airplane? Did you see an airplane?"
Yeah. So that kind of leads us into language in the curriculum, as Michelle mentioned.
Yeah. So the sensitive period of language really starts out with fascination of sounds. The oohs and the ahs become moos and meows, and then it turns into this new ability and tool that the children have. So they come in and they want to point things out. Chair, table, book, monkey. And nomenclature is very, very big at an early age. So when we start introducing sound work, we introduce the phonetic sound of the letters. To go in line with their fascination of sounds. But also, before I give a little lesson on these 3, I just want to show you that we use lowercase letters. And with the sounds, it's because when they learn to read later in life, most of the words that they're reading are all in lowercase letters. So that way they can sound out the words. But it starts out just nomenclature. This is This is That's it, and they can hold it and they can feel it. And then it progresses into the sandpaper letter, where they're more intentional about how they're tracing the letter, this multi-sensorial experience of, oh, yeah.
So yeah, just your writing fingers,
And then we have these wonderful
feel it.
sounds in the toddler level that actually match the sandpaper letters. So they were made by a Montessori teacher to fit. And so the sound then grows into having a deeper meaning. It's kind of when the toddler brain goes from the unconscious, exploratory, to a more conscious state. And so the initial sound for monkey is, and you can see here that the child is matching all of the objects, their initial sounds. And that really gives us data. That data lets us know that this child truly knows that the initial sounds match with those objects.
And then that leads us in primary, and we're still doing this also in primary when they first come in. They're still working with these materials initially, and then as we begin to see that they're familiar with most of the sounds, but not necessarily all of them, we start working with, this is the movable alphabet. And so this child has written, dragonflies have been on Earth for millions of years. And you can see it's not spelled accurately as we would spell it. But that's okay, because that's not the point of it at this stage. The point is for this child to continue to reinforce those associations between sound and symbol, to again feel that feeling of like, I have something important to say, and what I have to say, I can write it down. And they don't need to be able to write on paper with this material either. So it frees the mind from the constraints of the hand is like one of my favorite Montessori quotes, so that they can write without needing to know how to yet have that control of movement. But imagine if, because English is not a phonetic language, and that's not our fault, and that's not the child's fault. But imagine if I went through while she was writing this, and I said, well, nope, that's a Y, and nope, that has an E in it, and that's actually not how you spell that, and that's not how you spell that either, and oh yeah, no, that's not right, and that's not right. Like, would she ever want to take this material out again? No, she would be like, this is no fun, because all you're doing is, pointing out all the things that are incorrect, whereas the point of it was that she had a thought, we read this together, she picked something out that she thought was interesting from what we read, and then she wanted to write it down. So that's really the most important, and even within this, she is actually, we're reinforcing the millions here of she's associating some of these phonetics, these key phonograms that we've learned already with those sounds. And then here, this child is starting the process of practicing writing in sand. So that when they're ready to start really writing on paper, sand is so forgiving, you just shake it, it's gone. So if you made a mistake, no worries, it goes away right away. You don't even need to erase it really. And then this is, this child is reading at this point, so has been working with all of these, and then at the end she's reading what's called logical adjective. It's like one of the most fun, like a list of adjectives, a list of nouns, and you put them together all willy-nilly, and you make all these funny combinations, and then they decide, does this make sense? Does this not make, do you like it? Do you not like it? It doesn't even have to make sense. Do you like, baby, or like big bat? Do you like it? Yes. If you don't, then we'll move that and choose another one. So that's playing with language, but also reading.
So what does this look like at home? How are you hearing language in your house? How is it coming out for your child? Any questions about language at home?
We could also frame it like if it's helpful in a, like we were thinking like mealtime, like what is like just to give us like a little bit of a frame, like language at mealtime, for instance, like how might that manifest, but we don't have to go in that direction because you've had a thought about it, just if that helps anybody else.
So we are in a trilingual home. So language looks, I think, probably confusing for him. I speak to Ziggy in one language, his dad speaks to him in a different language, and then the language that we all speak together is English. And so I think from language, what it looks like is, we've got a lot of labels on things. Now that he is starting to read about the labels on things in the different languages. However, I did take note of what you were saying. I was wondering, at what stage do you do that movable alphabet where you're not correcting? Because I do think that I do correct a lot, because the spelling, depending on the language, is different. It's going to look so, just so that we're not blurring the lines between switching from English to Shona and then maybe putting in some Ndebele phonetics in there to make one word. I do correct quite a lot and say, well, in English, this would be how you would spell it, but in this language, you spell it this way.
Well, I mean, Ziggy's a kindergartner.
Yes.
So at this, typically, at this point in the year for kindergartners, I kind of offer often, spelling as, a point of interest. I don't know how most people spell this word, And sometimes they also, often at that age, start to ask, is that how that's spelled? Is that right? And then I'm not going to say yes if it's, if I'm going to say, well, it depends. If they're really young, I might say, is that what it sounds like to you? But for a kindergartner, I would probably say, well, actually, most people spell it this way. And I might share, so it's like a point of interest for them, and they are really interested at that point, especially when they're reading, because they're beginning to make that association that there is a common spelling of words, and they're interested in that, and that reading really helps with spelling because they begin to reinforce the spelling of things because it's the same everywhere, more or less. So I would say this is kind of around the time when I would be doing it anyway, for in the case of Ziggy. And I think, multilinguality is that language development looks really different. But I think sometimes people will say it in such a way as if it's they're behind, but really they're 2 times, 3 times ahead of everyone else because they're integrating so much more information. And so I think that's something that I always like to plug don't say it like that. They're ahead of everyone, right? Because they're integrating so much more vocabulary and the movements of the mouth and all of that stuff.
Making more neural connections. And this is actually the time, if you're ever going to introduce a second language or a third language at home, the age 0 to 6, this is the time for language acquisition, and this is when it'll be easiest for them to absorb. When they're older, if they're, not quite spelling out all 3 languages, they're going to get to it when they're older. But now is the age to introduce it. They're also problem solving. So children who speak multiple languages are problem solving when to use that language and who to speak it with. At home, if they speak Spanish or Italian, they speak that with their parents, and when they come to school, they know we don't speak that, or most of us here don't, so they speak English with us. So it's problem solving how to use language to get what they need or what they want.
And it's funny, I happen to speak Spanish, and if I try and speak Spanish to a child that I know speaks Spanish at home, they oftentimes just laugh in my face. They're like, that's ridiculous. Get out of here. Not so much with toddlers, sometimes they just look at you wide-eyed, but in primary, they're like, nope, next, try again.
Just some context for mealtime at home. I think that's when we hear a lot of language from school. So I learned the songs. We talk about what happened in school, and my oldest, I'm not sure this came from school, it might have came from Bluey. Yesterday it was can we play 20 questions? And there's a lot of language then, right? And it wasn't even the what I thought was typical 20 questions to get to something. He was like, can I just ask you 20 questions? I was like, are there any rules? One of the questions was, what's the person with the longest hair that you know? Just very random. But also I wanted to kind of tie it back to order. I think this is the time where we bring order, so I always talk about what's happening this week or tomorrow, or you guys are staying later at school tomorrow, and kind of walking through the schedule so that we all kind of end the day knowing what's happening tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that's helpful for us.
We have a language situation at home where I get ties together, the order, the language, routines as well. And we're wondering how long is this phase going to last? Because our son's latched on to the Heffalumps and the Winnie the Pooh stories, and he's particularly interested in one segment of it, where Kanga calls Roo home. And everything, it seems like everything now we talk about home is related to this one story. And everything we do, whether it's mealtime or bedtime, or anything, it has to be related to, okay, Daddy, I'm no longer Lucas, and you're no longer Daddy. I'm Roo, you're Kanga, and call me home and go get my rope, and then I'll put my head up. And we do this all day long, every day. It feels like it's been forever. It's probably only been a couple weeks, but I wonder how long it will last. And I think it is for him. It's a sense of order. He will not go to the bath time until Kanga calls him. And you have to say, no, he'll correct, he'll say, no, you've got to put the rope around my neck and then take it off and say, you're growing up so fast. And he tells me this, and you're growing up so fast, and you got to follow exactly. I have to go back and I've reread the story because I get it wrong every time. But he insists I do it that way. And I wonder, is this up to it? It sounds like a phase of putting things together, ordering, creating order. It's a little bit too much sometimes. But we're wondering how long it's going to last.
Is your child in the toddler classroom
Yes.
too? Repetition. Sorry to jump in, but a part of that development, toddlers love to repeat things. It's almost like as adults when you have your favorite song and you're like, oh, I just want to hear it one more time. I want to hear it one more time. It's the same thing with the order being a part of it. And like how sweet. I think you were going to say to have such an intimate moment with your child. It won't be forever, but I sometimes say enjoy it while it's here because he's very intentional with you and with doing the routines at home. And one day he'll be 35 and you won't be Kanga.
Yeah, it's such a sweet. I mean, I wonder what it was about that moment that really touched him. It sounds like a really sweet moment too of reflecting on growing and I don't know if that's very touching to me. So the next one is movement.
In this video, we wanted to talk about movement in the prepared environment and how the physical space allows for movement. And in a toddler environment, most of the furniture is pushed up against the walls. So you could see he was able to walk with that bowl of water without any obstacles in his way. He's had some practice because there weren't any big spills, but that's okay if there are big spills because then they learn how to clean it up. But there's also movement with his hands and squeezing the sponge, wringing out the water, and eventually what those hands will do, they'll be able to put on shoes easily, take them off easily, carry a plate with food on it very easily.
Yeah. And then the next one is so, this was something that they had practiced a lot, which is why she's celebrating and sharing because it was not, I think it may have been the very first time that they had gotten all the way around and she hadn't dropped the egg. And the other child is carrying a bell on a stick. So the idea being that if you walk carefully enough, it's not going to make a lot of noise. Obviously, there's also a lot of that sometimes because it does. That's you have to point that out. Actually, the point is not to make noise with the bell. But yeah, so this is an example of an intentional movement work. It's called the line. So it's to help, with balance, with equilibrium, and they love to refine their movements. I'm sure you see your child walk on the, tiniest ledge with the, that little wobble. Yeah, because they're so keen to try the most difficult and to exercise to learn, that growing edge, that skill. And this is very typical of a 3 to 6 year old child, that desire to perfect their movement.
I was just gonna say too about the physical space in the toddler environment. It allows them to fall without getting hurt because they are very top heavy and they're still not coordinated. But as you see here in Maggie's video, the path of walking is narrower. There are children around doing work on the floor. The furniture is closer together, so they really do have that coordination to be able to navigate the room in a safe way and respectful to their peers as well.
Yeah, it's a big one, is learning how to walk around the mat without stepping on someone's work. And a lot of reminders are, hey, you stepped on my mat, please walk more carefully. You know, a lot of those reminders throughout the day. And then if we reflect back to the video of the child working with the math material, there's also, so there's like the intentional movement as part of the curriculum, but there's also movement as part of the curriculum in service of their intellect, right? So she's moving a lot while she's doing that work. Every time we get to 10 beads or 10 tens or 10 hundreds, we're going back to that cabinet to exchange those 10 for one of the next category. So it's involved, a lot of movement is involved in that work. The same with,
I just wanted to, I mean, while we're thinking of that, think about the alternative of having the work on a piece of paper and having 10 dots and crossing out the 10 dots and circling a 10.
yeah,
As opposed to what they just did.
And I think, you know, when you think about like carrying over in math as, you know, you get older and you are doing more complex, it is, if you forget to carry over, you're not gonna get it right, you know? And so the fact that they have to there's a lot of movement, you know, like you really can't forget to do those steps of moving, getting up. Whereas if it's just, you know, carrying it over on paper, it's easy to kind of forget, like, oh right, I forgot to write the 1. But it's like there's 10 of something and you have to get up and get 1 of something and bring it back. Those things are really help to get that stuck in your mind.
And one quote that Marie Montessori said is, what the hand does, the mind remembers. So even with a language work, there's still movement involved in it because they're getting the feel of the shape for
Yeah, that muscle memory of their hand. So it's big now, but it'll still translate to when you're writing it in a small. And I think, you know, we all know, oftentimes with Maria, she knew something before research even could back it up just from the observation of children. That was her genius. And, you know, we now know with brain imaging how much movement affects learning and cognition. And so I think, you know, always ahead of her time. Mm-hmm. So we don't want to forget recess. Yeah, that's important too.
It's so important because recess is free play. There's no structure. They can go out. It's like the primal scream of movement almost, running out. But there's a lot of problem solving that goes on with moving your body freely. If I climb up this, where do my arms go? Where do my legs go? How much force do I give to jumping off of something? Because last time I jumped really high and really fast and really hard and I got hurt. So it's figuring out how to move their bodies in this space and also, you know, around their friends too who are also having that primal scream.
And definitely we want to plug Miss Jen and Miss Olivia's talk from previously. If you weren't able to attend, you can also, I think, find it on the website that they talked about play, specifically play styles. So here's, you know, we went to a different park to explore different ways of moving, and then in this photo, it's just so sweet to me. This child is doing yoga with an adult, and this other child in front was observing but couldn't stop himself from seeing, can I do that too? You know, that just desire to move and perfect and test out your abilities. So yeah, you know, I'm sure movement is big time at home.
I think that was a big part of being trapped at home during the pandemic. Like, we don't have outdoor space, so I was like, what can we do to move? And then a climbing gym entered, and the couch, and it's like, the entire house was just things you could build and move and balance, and it kind of dissipated, but I think we had to intentionally create ways to move just given our space, and spend a lot of time outside, you know, moving on scooters and bikes. But that's important.
Yeah, even, you know, movement at mealtime, you know, you're putting your dishes away, serving yourself, even just the movement of food to mouth. That's
Chewing.
yeah, chewing. These are things that we think of as given for us as adults because it was so long ago that we learned to do it. But these are new skills for your child as well.
Yeah, and speaking at dinner time, bringing in that language piece, but then you're getting the children to move the muscles of their mouth, which can help them chew more easily and produce language.
I just had a question about the sort of the beadwork. Sorry, I might have, I totally missed it. Like, what are the carrying over and what the next stage is? Is it multiplication that they're doing? Is it addition? What? Sorry, honey,
yeah,
I
no.
completely
Of course,
didn't
this is
understand what that was.
yeah, this is kind of a precursor to even any kind of operations. We bring a big mess of beads to the mat, and then we organize it, and then we count it to get what did we actually bring. So there's multiple, like lots of, more than 10 of everything except for thousands. And so they have to count, let's say the bowl has 25 beads, we're gonna count out, and then when they're counting to see how many beads are in there, when we get to 10, I say, oh, stop, we have 10. Is there anything else on this mat that is equal to 10? And then they'll say, oh, a 10 bar. A 10 bar, let's go. You can go back to the cabinet, take these 10 beads, and get one 10 bar from the cabinet. So they're getting this concept that when you have 10 of something in one category, it's actually one of the next category. So you don't have 25 units, 100 tens. 100 tens is not 100 tens, or 10 tens is not 10 tens anymore, it's 100.
Okay.
So they're getting those, it's to reinforce that. And then we can start doing dynamic addition, which is with carrying over, where you have
Okay.
This bridges some of what you've been talking about, but our child is really good with rules, like, the rules you don't use your toothbrush to like wash the mirror or whatever. So anything like that, our child is really good with. When it comes to play, learning new skills, he never likes to do things the way they're intended to be done. So from, hey, like, let's use this crayon and draw the paper. No, we're gonna cut the paper. Or let's play break the ice. The way you do that is you take a piece of ice and you hide them in every drawer of the house and you go find them. Like, there's no kind of structured play that he doesn't like to restructure, which we let go because we figured this is his playtime and he'll learn how to draw at some point or whatever. But like, our child doesn't know how to like draw circles. He's 4, doesn't know how to like draw circles or squares and lots of things like that that we just kind of let go because we figure it's his playtime. Like, he's very good at following rules. We're sure at school now. We've always heard he's like, when he doesn't like fight against getting a lesson or whatnot. So we figured maybe this is his outlet to like be the person that's imposing his order. But it does make it challenging to ever try to do anything like writing a letter or anything else you can imagine, like riding a bike or. So I'm just kind of like, what is the push and pull between like, because like you said, we're not trying to teach them how to spell it precisely, so we're not correcting their spelling, but you also won't let them just stack the letters up to make a tower. So there's the order of this is how you use this piece and there's freedom within that. And we're finding at home that we just kind of have to be hands off completely. Again, unless it's like a rule of doing things in the house which our child is good at.
Did you want to speak to that?
Yes. So, fast forward to kindergarten with someone like that.
So Ziggy was like that as well, like.
Couldn't get him to draw loops, couldn't get him to draw circles, squares, color in the lines, none of that, not gonna happen. But what I did find is that the basics, I shouldn't say basics, but the back to basics work, the basic tasks that are being reinforced with the work that's going on in the classroom, he's getting enough of it, or at least he was getting enough of it in class with writing in sand or pairing. I went to a couple of class observations where he's paired with other students and they're matching letters for spelling, coming up with words that they spell. And then eventually, when it comes to now, Godzilla, and he wants to write a comic at home about Godzilla. He knows how to put it together to pull those bits and pieces from when he was practicing how to write, following the letters in the sand and all of that. I'm like, well, how do you spell Godzilla? I have a water bottle here that he wrote. I think it went in the dishwasher, so you can't really quite see it, but it says Godzilla and on it because that's where he wants to write on. That's where he wants to write on. He doesn't want to write it on a piece of paper, like let's sit down and practice your letters. But it comes through like that. Or if you've got, or he'll get a water bottle, like a spray bottle, and he'll want to maybe spray on the sidewalk the letter A that way, rather than to write it on a piece of paper. It's just joining him in that world of alternate universe, if you will, of how to use materials and his environment to practice those skills. It doesn't look like a piece of paper and a crayon, but the letters are getting in there, and one of the things that we did was, what was not alphabet bingo, but just going around the streets as we were walking. He absolutely enjoyed, like, can you spot the letter A somewhere on a sign somewhere, and reinforcing the alphabet that way rather than writing down the letter. And when he had that and he sees that, he wants to do it with spray bottles or with the anything that kind of explodes or goes out, or pieces that he can randomly put some Lego together and shape it in that letter, or just things that are not sitting down and writing it on a piece of paper. It's just,
and that's observation
really
is so important, and that's a tool that we use because not every child is interested in a particular work. So we spend a lot of time watching them and seeing what they're more interested in or motivated to use. One year I had a child who only wanted to touch an elephant, only wanted to sit with elephants, and went to Maggie after me. But so I talked to my co-teacher at the time, and I said, we need elephants in every curricular area of our classroom, because he would only sit in the library with an elephant book. So once we rearranged the materials on the shelves, gave it a purpose, a scrubbing work, put it in math, put it in the art area, so you can stomp an elephant in paint and then put it on the easel. This child, once he was comfortable with navigating the room, went around and started using all of the work. So it was really seeing what he was interested in. I think you also are completely correct with playtime. If that's what your child wants to do during playtime and there's a purpose and everybody's safe and it's not too disruptive, I say go with it, because there is that internal sense of order that gives him control. And so for children at this age level, we do a lot of things to kind of dictate what they do during the day. So that's where they get a choice, right? They're like, I want to do it this way, and I feel good about it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we definitely have a lot of, this is not how we use this, but we have this we could use instead. And, if it becomes a problem, that's how we would redirect. Like with stacking letters, there are children who maybe aren't very interested in it, and then it starts to become playing, and that's when I say, all right, seems like you're not so into this, but let's go over here and see what we have we can actually build with. So yeah, that's what I'm sure you already thought of that though. At home, if there are things where you're like, this is not safe, or this is, but yeah, I agree. I know we're kind of running out of time. 5 minutes sentence, very rare.
Refinement of the senses, really in toddlers, is just about repetition. Having them use the work and the materials over and over and over again, and that's what they like to do, so how wonderful. The one thing that we do is we really observe what they're interested in, like I just mentioned, and when we notice that they're successful with it, we give it a little bit of a challenge. So in the first picture, you see a child using tongs. In the beginning of the year, the tongs are very flexible. They're able to pick up these big pom-poms, and it's just one bowl to the next. As the year goes on, the utensils become more challenging, firmer to use. You need more of a grasp Also with eye-hand coordination, being able to get it into those tiny holes and transfer it out. And then once the children are using the materials over and over again, then they can do an independent making work all by themselves. So it's just showing you how we use the materials to help them refine the senses.
These are both, examples of sensorial material in the classroom. So this child has used this material over and over and over again, and recently discovered that you can put them together in this way and they are identical. And this was 100% his discovery because of repeated use with the material. He was so excited. He invited everyone to come look and see, they're the same size, and they go together, and you could be like this. It makes a bigger stair. I was like, yeah, it does. So that was, his independent discovery through repeated use. And really shows this is literally the building blocks of his intellect, right? Putting things together, noticing the similarities, the differences. And similarly with that material, you're bringing triangles, different types of triangles together to create different shapes. And so it's giving the impression that different shapes put together in certain ways create new novel shapes, right? And we give them language with that casually, rhombus, those words, and then they go out into their world and they point at things and they start labeling things accurately, oh, that's a rhombus, or that door's a rectangle. And these opportunities to draw connections between the material and the world around them are really exciting. And then this is outside of our environment. So we go on sensory walks, which is kind of something, obviously I'm sure you guys could do. We went to Logan Circle, just walked around, we stopped and smelled the flowers, we talked about, a lot of language, movement, sensorial experiences, and then in this picture we're having a tasting circle. They're trying dates all together, and then we talked about what does it taste like, what does it feel like, what does it remind you of, what does it look like, because for a lot of them the date doesn't look super appealing initially to eat, but it tastes like candy, it tastes like caramel, and so they are like, whoa, that's great. Or in the fall, we like to try different types of apples and talk about the differences between them, which ones do you like, which ones do you don't like. Citrus fruit tasting is really fun too. The lemon is always a hit. They're it's such a vibrant flavor, and so we love to do those types of things also. It's an opportunity for more language. Also, big plug, they are willing to try it in a setting like that, whereas at lunch they might be averse to trying it, which we do see, but then if we sit down all together and it's just for fun and we're just gonna try it, and this counts as a taste, right? And I think it takes 17 attempts before you can really get them maybe to eat something that they're averse to, so we can count that as as a taste. So that's something we really love to do. And you could do at home too. Just we're all gonna try this new food together, not at mealtime, just for fun. What does the sensory exploration look like at home, or what types of things, we have some things we just wanted also to say that this is important, that we don't expect every walk to be a sensory walk or every meal to be, an intentional experience. Sometimes you just need to eat or you need to get somewhere. So nobody's expectations are that, everything is a learning experience, although whether or not you're trying to, for your child, everything is a learning experience, but
That's right, and that's okay.
Yeah. Well, and that's a really good point too, that these are the things that are happening all the time in your lives, and we're intentional here at school about it, and no doubt your child is intentional at home about it without knowing. So when you feel pressured to, make every experience just right, know that for the most part it's all going on anyway. What your child needs is going on for them, for their development.
We do blindfold taste testing. Because he's always like, oh, I hate this cheese, I love this cheese, I can have this cheese. And it's all right, let's put the blindfold on and put them on. And then he's like, oh, I love this. He loves all of them when the blindfold on. Oh, this is the one you hate. He's like, so next time when I give it to him, he's like, I hate that one. But the taste test, he's like, yeah, I hate that one. But he loves to do blind taste testing.
Yeah, we have that in the classroom too, blindfold.
Yeah, isolate the senses. And all the material is designed to isolate the particular sense that you're trying to get to. And we might incorporate a blindfold on like the building the pink tower, brown stair, you know, or something that is, the visual sense is, you're gonna take that away so that they have to use their stereognostic sense. But I've never thought about blindfold taste test. That'd be fun.
Sometimes my child loves to know like how things are made. So like he likes to paint, alright, but like I do shaving cream and water and food coloring so he can make all his own colors, and then he like goes and paints the bathtub with it, and then like we wash it away, and then he's like oh now it's 2 hours on this, whereas like painting might be like 1 minute. So,
That's a lot of fun. That's so much fun. Just the feel of it, the smell of it, and then you get to create something. Okay, well, we have just a couple of resources. Outside of you, I would say go to your child's teachers because they really know your child well. They know what they're interested in. They know their capabilities. So if you're kind of searching for some things to do at home with your child, ask your teacher. And then I also brought these 3 books, which I love. I love Simone Davies, and she has a partnership now with Junifa Uzadike, and they came up with the Montessori Baby. So there are lots of suggestions in this book for activities to do at home with infants. And then for the toddler age child, 18 months to 3 years old, the Montessori toddler, and again, activities in the back that are age appropriate and developmentally appropriate for children. And then the Montessori child, which is ages 3 and up. I think it does go past 6 years old in this book. I haven't finished it yet because it just came out. But again, there are activities that are developmentally appropriate for the Montessori child to do at home.
They are on the screen. And then we also came up with a handout with just some ideas of like things to do that would hit these areas. And I think maybe we've already said it, but maybe not explicitly, that like these areas are so intertwined, you know? So when you're trying to talk about language, you're also getting in the order, or you're getting in sensorial. Like there's so much movement in everything. There's, so that they're not distinct. They're intertwined.
Does anyone have any questions for us?
Do you have any productive ways to have movement before bed instead of running through the house? Like I'm struggling with like, what is a meaningful way to move between like dinner and bedtime? And that's how like period of time when you get the like second wave.
Twilight.
Yeah.
Dancing, I think, and the thing that's nice with dancing is that you can engineer the experience intentionally. So you could start with a song that's like, we're moving, we're really grooving, we're like jumping, there's a lot of movement. And then as you want to start winding down, you can experiment with adding songs that your body naturally will start moving slower. A recommendation from an OT that came to visit was our heart rate is 60 beats per minute. And on Spotify, you can literally Google or like search 60 beats per minute, and there are playlists full of songs that are 60 beats per minute. So and they're not all like 60 beats per minute is not that slow. So you can, kind of intentionally steer them to that wind down. Yoga also, it's less, maybe if you're, you start with something that's a little bit more like up, and then you kind of get yourselves down, and you can even start with something that's all standing up movement and then lying down, like getting down to the ground, slowing your body down.
I do love, I was just gonna say, I do love the idea of dancing and along to music with each other because it's very intimate, and those are special moments too that when you grow up you remember. So you're building those memories as well.
We do glow in the dark dance with those like things you can snap, and then we put them in the tub with the lights out, so it moves them into the tub, and then the lights are out, so it's like special for them. So we do that like every couple days.
And then music is it's another like opportunity for language too. because there's, you learn the words to the song. So,
Maybe at the end of your nightly dance party, give really big squeezes,
Massage,
shoulders,
yeah.
massages, because deep pressure is also common to the body. And you're doing it with it being, again, an intimate moment with you and your child, as opposed to let's give a massage.
Yeah, but like a hug that's like a little bit more of a squeeze. But they love that, We check, like our children often want like a tight hug, and we'll check in, do you want do you want a tight hug? And yes, and sometimes I'm like, are you sure this is I check in, is this too tight? Is it and they're like, no, tighter, they really do. It feels really good to be, for some children, not all.
But even the intentional, or I'm gonna give you a foot massage now or whatever, that works in our house. You can tell them, because when my son, when his other dad comes to me and says, I don't know, he's not gonna fall asleep, you deal with him now. And I'll go in, and the only thing that works then is to just really say, all right, now you're gonna get a foot massage, and you're gonna do all these things that are non-rambunctious, are calming, but intentionally calming. He knows it, because he knows it, he expects it from me, which is why he doesn't want me to put him to bed, because he knows
Because you will.
will. So, but it's intentional. So he knows, massages are good. He likes them.
Yeah.
Yeah, head massage is a good, hands, squeezing each individual spot in your digit. And you can teach them to do that too for themselves. That's really good, organizing, calming.
And so, sometimes that does satisfy the need. I mean, the instinct is to move as it's fighting fatigue. They might not, they might need more movement, but they might also just need that grounding.
And my sense is sometimes it's just, they're almost like provoking, show me where the limit is, right? Because I'm going to keep going. I'm not, bang my head against the wall, literally, and say, I bang my head against the wall. Right? But at some point you want to slow them down, and I feel like it's a discussion I have with my spouse. You just got to tell them this is what we're going to do next, because we're not going to bang our heads against the wall. And so that limit, I think he almost wants it, which is why then he asks for the other one. Come in and do what you do. If I want to sleep, actually, but I'm not really giving you any indication that I want to sleep. I know he wants to sleep.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Same. When it's time to go to bed, I'm like, I just want to watch another episode, or I just want to go on my phone,
And at his age,
I need
it's
you to
his
come
job
and tell me to go to
to
sleep.
push boundaries and limits,
that's
right?
what I
And
think.
so what you're doing is you're providing those boundaries, which is what we do at school too. All right, now it's time for this.
I just wanted to add, I had my niece over for spring break, and so it was my sort of first experience, when you had it all the time, Carrie with two. And what I found helped, this was about 3 days in, was to have time outdoors in that after dinner.
Now that's
before bedtime, and now that it's lighter, it's probably going to be a bit easier. If there's a nearby spot that they can go to, and it was just a soccer ball or football or rugby ball or something that they could kick around amongst themselves and just really run. And there was a lot of running and yelling. Just get it out there when you're outside, and then when we come back, because it was just sort of near bedtime, that with that relaxation after you've had a big kind of time, it just nicely segued into going to bed. So that could
that's helpful. I think there's some things I need them to be able to do on their own if I'm doing dishes, and that might be the dancing, and I can see them in the kitchen. And then sometimes there's days where I think we can, let's all go, and we've done that, or even we go out front and just kick the ball against the house.
Yes. It's probably good for melatonin too, production, getting the light outside on your skin to kickstart that sleep cycle happening.